Captain Locke pressed on, deeper into the tunnel as it climbed higher at a slow and steady rate. His pockets were heavy with diamonds, but his hopes were high. He may have lost his horse, but he could get a new ship. Ah, yes, things were looking up. So long as he could get out of this cave, he'd be fine. He followed a small stream upwards. The water was coming from somewhere, and that meant an opening of some sort. The tiny little flame in his hand illuminated the cavern. He saw fewer and fewer diamonds in the walls. He wasn't an expert and didn't notice the marks in the stone as if something hard and sharp had been swung at the wall. But he did notice the sound of his boot kicking more small stones, ones that had been broken away. One stone clinked off a piece of metal, and Captain Locke leaned in to see what it was. A lantern. He picked it up and looked at the rusted metal. The smell of kerosene had long since dried up. He kept going, but he was being watched. Something was watching from the shadows. Long, stringy hair hung on the head. The fingernails were long and jagged. Two large, bulbous eyes stared down at the man from its hiding spot. It thought as it watched, was he the one? Yes, he had to be. Why else would that traitor be here? That blighter. He deserved death. Yes, he did. Oh, yes. The creature didn't giggle as it scurried through the cavern. Others fell in alongside it. As a pack, they moved to position themselves to ambush. Clutched in their hands were rusted pickaxes and shovels. Without making a sound, they sprang down at Captain Locke, their crude implements aimed at the lost sailor's head. Welcome back to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today we turn to a tale ripe with real-life horror stories you all have heard, I am sure. That is what the White Eyes are. Let's take a look at this unfortunate figure from the Wild West. There are many things which drove people into the Wild West. Near the top of that list is gold. Silver and gold. A man could make a fortune with a lot of daring and luck. Most failed. They ended up broke as they headed back to the farm in shame. A few found a lucky claim. They used their first bit of gold to set up a mine and pay others to dig for them. Then disaster struck. The mine caved in. People died. A mad scramble to rescue survivors follows. But how long do you dig? How fast? When do you give up and assume that there are no more survivors? What if you are wrong? What if people did survive? That is the White Eyes. Such tales occur anywhere that mining is common. Amongst them was the Wild West, where the White Eyes come from. These poor miners survived the initial disaster. With nothing left to do, they started digging their own way out. They lost track of time. Days or weeks, or maybe even months passed, and finally they dug their way out. Fresh air blew on their face for the first time as they emerged in the middle of the day. The sun's light was blinding to them, and they crawled back into the cavern. They screamed out for the town throughout the day, but no one came. The miners chatted amongst themselves until the sun set, and a moonless night rose. Finally, they could reach the town. They yelled and screamed, but no one came. As they poked around, they found themselves in a ghost town. Everyone was gone. With the mine closed up, the town died. No one was looking for them. No one. They were abandoned. That infuriated the miners, and they crept out of the cave, back into the world. They tracked down the mine owner and murdered him. Then the next person in line, and another. Anyone tied to the mine. Then anyone else from the town. Then they quit caring and just murdered anyone they found. When people saw them, they were repulsed by their twisted appearances. Their skin was pale and their eyes were large. Whenever in light, their eyes looked pure white. Thus, they get their name. They originally only attacked those that left them in the mine, but soon turned on anyone who saw them, anyone who was disgusted by their hideous appearance. So, what caused their monstrous visage? To understand, why don't we figure out what caused the cave-in, and could they survive? Well, the second question is pretty easy. Survivors of cave-ins are a common story, and I am sure that you have heard a few. So what causes this? Gas explosions are common, usually hydrogen sulfide or natural gas being the most common. Both are poisonous to breathe and could have additional influences on the miner. After that, another option is a dust explosion. This is when fine powder catches fire. Easy to happen in a coal mine with coal, dust, and flame lanterns, and the use of dynamite. Earthquakes of various levels can trigger it. Floods and heavy runoff also loosen the soil. Throw in wear and tear on the supports. So we've got a few options here. Let's rule a few out, namely the explosions and gases. Those have the highest chance of killing and could be deadly even after the explosion, and the miners would need time to dig out. And less likely in the gold mines, which is what the stories usually speak of. So what is most likely? I am going to go with a heavy spring runoff from a high snowpack. Snow is heavy to begin with, and can weigh down the ground above the mine, and as it melts, the water can seep down through the ground, cause the dirt on the roof to fall down. Also, nights are cold enough to freeze the water, then will warm in the day. This can lead to cycles of freezing expansion, which can crack some stone. This can weaken the structural support. Perfect setup for a mine collapse. There is another reason I choose this option. There are a few things a person needs to survive. First up is air. Fresh oxygen needs to come in while excessive carbon dioxide leaves. This doesn't need to be a large shaft. This will create a small air current, but nothing excessive. After that, we need water. On average, you can go 3 days without water before you die. But if you are doing nothing, you can stretch it out to 6 days. But that won't work while you are digging. Now, you can recycle urine, but it becomes toxic after about 3 passes through a human body. If you are in a situation where you need to drink urine, you want to start drinking it early. But be careful, and don't worry about modesty under this situation. But fresh water is always better, even if it is filtered through the mine a bit. Though, you need to be careful where your waste goes. You don't want to contaminate your fresh water supply. That could also happen if a corpse ends up buried within the waterways. That brings up the next issue, food. Now, maybe our miners packed a lunch and had it underground with them when our disaster struck, but after that, there is no food. Well, that is a lie. If you can put aside your morals, there is a food source that the miners could turn to. Each other. Yeah, we are going morbid today. On average, a human body contains 125,000 calories to 144,000 calories. Now, not all tissues can be eaten easily, such as the bones and hair, but that leaves muscles and organs. So, a fair bit. Now, since most miners are men, and digging is a very taxing task, let's go with the high end for 3,000 calories a day per person. I am going to go with the low end of the 125,000 calories per body since our individuals are starving. So a 125,000 divided by 3,000 gives us 41.6 days of food. Shorter probably when you remove the bones and hair. So let's say 30 days. Caves are usually cooler environments and known to slow the decomposition. and limits animal access. That means the body should rot slower. Now, most people aren't going to resort to cannibalism right away. It'll be a few days, maybe a week before it sets in. So about 30 to 40 days, the miners will be eating. But how many folk perish in the cave-in? How many survive? That is the question here. We know a handful of people survive to become the White Eyes. A mine can employ 100 workers on the short end and thousands on the high end. So, if we have 5 survivors, each that died would last 5 days as food. After that, we need to figure out how long a rescue mission would go. What would you say is a good estimate? 3 days of water? 3 weeks of food? That is what we are using as a baseline. So a month wouldn't be a bad guess. If there was evidence of survivors digging, then the rescue would be continued. But there is something that could lengthen the rescue mission. Is there more gold in the hills? If the mine was fruitful, then the owner may try to get it going and keep the mine running. Sure, that is after he pays for new supplies, reimburses the workers and families, hires a new crew, assuming that any would want to try again, and all the other issues of running a business. So if the mine was abandoned, it would need to have run dry, and the owner may be running short on finances to fund a rescue. After the rescue shows no results, he may take those losses and move on. But with boomtowns, that is the danger. If the whole thing depends on one industry, if that closes, then the town dies. That would be why there is no one to greet the miners upon their escape. We have one last issue to deal with. The White Eyes get their names from their large white eyes. They become accustomed to the dark and their pupils become permanently dilated. This is called mydriasis, and can take time to return to normal for our miners. That means too much light enters their eyes and they become blind. The White Eyes are photophobic, or an aversion to light. Now, given enough time, and the light slowly reintroduced, they should eventually return to normal. Not unless there is damage to the eyes, which is definitely a possibility under these conditions. Between their damaged vision, possible mental scars, and the challenge of living in a cave after certain death, the White Eyes' mental state probably isn't too good. And to find out that you were abandoned, left for dead, yeah, that could push them over the edge. The first thing to pay attention to here is how our fight begins. The White Eyes are secretive. When they arrive at a town, their first kills are often mistaken for animal attacks. Though they have been known to tie folk up. You'll need to look for tracks, human ones, worn boots, ones that appear at night and then flee into dark areas. That should be your clue. So, how to fight them? Our White Eyes are human, miners. They are strong, but have a major weakness. They don't like bright light. A torch, fire spell, or lightning spells will leave them blind and open to counterattacks. Basically, this is human versus human. So, a fair fight in terms of physical strength. Oh, they'll be on the stronger side, but you've been training, right? You should be able to meet them face to face. They don't have armor or tough skin, just ratty clothes. Maybe a hard hat if they are lucky. So you can bring any weapon you want, from a big stick to your favorite sword. Run your full arsenal. Pick your favorites, same for spells. Once blinded, you have the advantage. But where is the fight? In a mine? That means tight corridors. They will try to remove your light source and leave you blind. They won't be though. They can hunt by sound as well. Can you? Make sure to protect your light. have a way to relight it at your side. In mine, you are in tight corridors. I would favor a shorter weapon or a long spear. As for the Wide-Eyes, they will have mining tools, shovels and pickaxes. Dangerous, but not specialized weapons. Oh, they can definitely kill you, but nothing that some solid plate won't stop. Chainmail is likely to be pierced, gambeson as well. The shield is going to be your best bet up close. Wide-Eye is mobile, but a mine shaft will limit its mobility as well. Be careful with fireball and explosion spells. You don't want to get trapped in the cave. I also wouldn't bother burying them once more. They can just dig themselves out. If out in the open, they will surely try and flee to a dark place. Set up a ring of flames to coax it into an easier position. The Wide-Eyes are an interesting foe. They are unfortunate humans that were dealt a losing hand, and they want others to suffer for it. But ultimately, they are human. Their physical strength and ability is on par with your own, if a little above. There is no marks about it having any magic, or supernatural powers at hand. The weapons are for digging, not combat. This is a fairly simple fight on the surface. Wouldn't you agree? That's why I am going to give the Wide-Eyes a 3 of 10 for difficulty, a position equal to other humanoids. The Wide-Eyes are human, so I would question eating them. That and using their skin would be questionable, but there could be gold in their lair. A dangerous place, yes, but if people were digging there could still be something of value inside. Now, could you recruit a Wide-Eyes to your party? If only you are out for revenge on one person, but is it a good idea? They don't like light, but you need it. That is 2 different fighting styles that are antagonistic at the best of times. Honestly, I would just avoid trying to recruit one to your side. The Wide-Eye sprang down at Captain Locke. Their rusted weapons swung down at his exposed head. If not for a faint cry that slipped from their lips of his attackers, the sailor would have been dead. At the last possible moment, he was able to move aside as his foes landed on the ground, their pale skin and monstrous features. The mage let off a surge of flames. Shrieks flew from the Wide-Eyes' mouths as they fled back. Malice filled their large eyes. They waved their tools and flung dirt at the flames to quench them. Captain Locke noticed something during all of that. They were made of metal, iron, rusted or not. Switching tactics, he traded his flames for lightning. It struck in an instant, guided by the old tools like a rod. The cries of the Wide-Eyes grew louder and louder, but the mage kept it up. Not until the Wide-Eyes were twitching in the rubble, his charred remains, did he release his spell. Breathing heavy, the man pressed on as a cold breeze brushed his sweaty cheek. The Wide-Eyes is a misfortunate figure. A person whose life could have turned out completely different if not for a single moment. But due to chance, they have become hateful figures that will attack anyone who is even remotely associated with those that have wronged them, even if that connection is as simple as being in the same place. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next week, where we shall be meeting the Kilut. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.